Welcome back. Uh, Welcome back, or if this is your first time seeing this face on your screen, then just welcome. So, today we're continuing what we started last week, which was looking at the social aspects of the corona crisis. And we covered some fun stuff and less fun stuff. And looking at my itinerary for this video, we're probably gonna be talking more about the less fun stuff this time around, but nonetheless interesting. Today we're looking at the reasons why some people started hoarding as soon as this crisis became real, why some people are still not following the new rules and regulations, and also why people shame or get angry with people who hoard or are not following orders. It's all gonna be a full circle moment. I'm Kirstine, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be if you like social analysis, qualitative research, and design thinking. And please consider subscribing if these topics interest you. Let's jump in head first. Take a look at this. This is of people hoarding, and maybe you've seen similar footage yourself or seen it live with your own two eyes, and maybe you have been out hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer yourself. The hoarding has been so extreme that governments around the world have had to make statements to the like of this.
Stop hoarding. I can't be more blunt about it. Stop it.
So now, while hoarding might seem like an overreaction to the current circumstances, since we're not experiencing a food supply crisis, current circumstances have shaken our feeling of safety and comfortability in our day-to-day lives, which are generally pretty predictable. Now that we don't know what tomorrow brings and we can't see an exact end to the present situation, we feel like our basic safety is threatened, and then our survival mode kicks in. And what happens when our survival mode kicks in? We do whatever we can to secure ourselves and our immediate loved ones from any possible danger, and we don't care what anyone else thinks or what harm our actions may cause others.
I just want one pack. No, not one pack.
For some people, hoarding groceries was their way of regaining a feeling of safety. We especially saw these hoarding tendencies right in the beginning of this whole ordeal, when our government started to announce that there were going to be changes to our society.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone.
Life is changing in Australia as it is changing all around the world. Life is going to continue to change.
As the virus continues its spread, we've decided to take increasingly aggressive steps to keep you and your family safe.
That sudden announcement of shit's getting real can have been traumatizing and triggering for people, causing them to act in ways that you would see as irrational, but makes pretty good sense when we look at it from the perspective of us human being more emotionally rather than rationally driven. And I'm not saying that you should hoard, I'm just saying it is understandable that some people would react that way. It also seems like people are hoarding less now, which might be because the immediate shock has calmed down and we have adapted to this new normal to some degree. And on a side note, according to Walmart statistics, we've gone from hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer to now buying things like beard trimmers and hair dye. Really interesting to see the development of our spending habits in this pandemic. But even though we're slowly acclimating to this new normal, for some people the initial shock seems to have calmed down a little too much, because we're still seeing more than two people from the same household going grocery shopping together, people not being particularly good at keeping that distance, and people still meeting up with their friends, even though it all enhanced the risk for passing on the virus. And unlike the people who hoarded as the reaction to the initial shock, people who still don't follow regulations are bad people. I'm of course completely kidding. There's always a reason for why we do as we do, and most of us don't have bad intentions, even though we make bad decisions. So let's take a look at some reasons why people are not abiding to the new rules and regulations. First up is that this is just too big of a thing, they can't grasp it. It's too overwhelming, so instead the brain starts to ignore or deny the danger altogether. In order to cope with these devastating news, people might also resort to minimizing the risk of the virus and think,
it will not affect me because it's only dangerous for old people and I'm young and healthy and 80% only experience mild symptoms anyway.
if that's what a person thinks, it makes sense why they're having a laissez-faire attitude about the new orders. Again, not that it's okay to then also put other people at risk, but their behavior is just understandable to some degree. Another thing that could be going on in people's brains is simply not trusting, believing, or agreeing with authorities. Consequently, they don't really feel like compromising their lifestyle in order to obey these people in power who have infringed upon their freedom to do certain things. If you think the regulations are basically garbage, then you are of course less likely to follow them stringently. But you know what else is contagious besides a virus? Behavior. So even though people want to avoid getting the virus, and even though they trust the information coming from the government, they may still not behave as recommended. And that can be because seeing other people doing something that might not be completely okay, we sometimes experience their behavior as a pass to also do it ourselves. On various levels of consciousness, we think, well, they're doing it, so maybe it's not that bad that I'm doing it too. However, seeing other people behaving against the rules can also have the opposite effect on us, and I'm probably gonna cover that in another video to not make this video too long and all over the place. Okay, the next reason people are not doing things that are in accordance with recommendations probably seems more excusable. And that reason is simply that they're confused about what is allowed and what is not allowed. It's safe to say that all this is new to us, and so are the new behaviors we must adopt. And the information we get from all different sources can be confusing. And even if we choose to only get the information straight from the authorities, communication from their part can still be unclear and leaving people interpreting the rules differently, so that some people do things that other people have interpreted as being against the recommendations. Speaking of communication and regulating behavior, it is no news to the behavioral sciences that people don't necessarily automatically do what they're told to do. Even as adults can have trouble actually abiding by the rules. And that doesn't mean that we're stupid or purposely acting out. It means that we're human. Because I am an adult. At least that's what the behavioral sciences says, so that's what I'm personally going to go with. The issue is that even though we are continually being advised to wash our hands, keep a distance, and not touch our face, and even though we agree and understand why that advice makes sense, when we go about our daily lives, we don't necessarily live by that information. And that's because the choices us humans make are to a large degree formed by the immediate influences in the environment in any given situation. You know that if you've ever gone grocery shopping on an empty stomach and cake conveniently has been on sale, and even though cake was nowhere to be found on your grocery list, there it is, right in your shopping cart. We're gonna explore this communication and behavioral design aspect in another video. For now, let's just note that one reason why we still don't follow the new rules and regulations is that humans are to a large degree influenced by the emotions we feel in a given situation and not by the information we got a few days ago. So if the concrete environments in which we need to exhibit these new behaviors are not designed to facilitate the desired behaviors, then we're just less likely to perform them. And that brings us to those of us who are frustrated or even right out angry with people who hoard or people who don't follow regulations. Oh, I have news for us. Our hating on people who are not doing as told by the authorities is not necessarily because we are morally superior to them. Rather, their behavior now poses a threat to us and our survival. So now our strategy is to regain our feeling of safety, and our primal brain kicks in and believes that these people are immoral. We cannot trust them. They are intentionally trying to kill us all. And that's because when we're stressed, we can't distinguish between a person and that person's behavior. And when we aren't able to separate the two, we think that what a person does in a particular situation makes them either a good and trustworthy person or a bad and amoral person. Our ability to empathize with other people basically goes out the window when we feel like our life and safety are on the line. We don't see that people's reactions, for the most part, are very situational and not a sign of fundamental character traits. However, making the assessment that a person as a whole is bad because they did a certain thing is a survival mechanism meant to keep our community and ourselves safe. When we fear for our lives and safety, we don't take any risks, and if someone is showing selfish behavior that could potentially hurt us, we are not the ones to give second chances, and we deem the person to be untrustworthy and we won't include them in the group. We might even warn other people about them or end the threat entirely. That's why we sometimes also feel a need to publicly call people out for misbehaving, which in this case, for instance, is being done by recording and posting about them on social media. So yeah, we're all just human and trying to survive. If you also hate taking risks, I recommend you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. And while you're at it, I would thoroughly appreciate you giving this video a like if you found it anywhere in between like kind of good and fan-freaking-tastic. Okay, here's your bloopers of the week. Behavioral sure. Reality. Just 2 hours. And so the confusion continues.